All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to the Real Estate Zone. John McClellan, Supreme Lending, Kevin Bown with 12 Rivers Realty. That's B-O-W-N, Bown like town. We're here today, end of January 2024. We're going to be talking about the Austin market and the surrounding areas. What's happened in 2023. We're going to regurgitate some of that. And then we're going to talk about 2024, what to look forward to, and what our predictions are for 2024. Kevin, how's it going, bud?
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've brought this content to our viewers and listeners and consumers, if you will, for, gosh, has it been 20 years now?
Yeah, we're 20 years on the radio. We decided to bring it to YouTube for all of our...
The only thing we haven't done is Morse code, but we've done radio, we've done TV.
I feel like when we started, it was more like Morse code.
It was like Morse code. So this is fun now to use technology.
It is, and it's really interesting how times have changed over the last 20 years of
Quickly.
us doing radio shows and doing live remotes and things like that from different places. And now we've got YouTube, and everybody uses YouTube, right? And get a lot of information there. And that's what we're here today to do, and that's what the Real Estate's all about. Is the Real Estate Zone is about sharing with our clients, our future clients,
Right.
our friends, our family members, with each other about what's happening in this crazy market that we live in right now.
Yeah, that's right. You're a mortgage banker, and you've been doing this for a long time, more than
30 years.
Almost 3 decades, right? And I'm a real estate broker at 25 years experience as well. And one of the things we started working together early on, we had similar philosophy about how we run our businesses. We noticed that our competitors often would hold their cards kind of close to their chest.
Yeah.
If they got some knowledge, they would keep that as a secret and not share it with everybody.
Kind of like the MLS.
A little like the MLS. We might get into NAR today.
Yeah.
You and I said, hey, why don't we learn as much as we can, become as competent as we can, and share it with everybody? And people said, you're crazy. They'll steal all your information. We said, that's okay. We'll keep getting new information.
Right.
And we'll stay at the forefront. And we wanted to share it with everybody, with our customers, our clients, with listeners, viewers, everybody.
Yeah.
Family members. So we just put it out there. And that's part of what the show is.
People, right?
It is. It's education. It becomes an interview process. You get to watch us and decide, hey, do I want to work with these guys?
Or hell no.
Or hell no. Or just forward it along to somebody that needs this content. So we do bring cutting edge content so that people can make better decisions. And that's kind of a way that we work with the community, right? It's giving back. We both do a lot of philanthropy and other forms and fashions and raise money for different interests. But this is also a giving back where we just share what we think's happening so people can take some value.
I own a hot sauce company too. And actually I have a YouTube channel for that. And I've taken the philosophy that we've done on the radio show for years to my YouTube channel and showing people how we make our hot sauces. And people tell me, John, you're crazy. You're giving up all your recipes right on YouTube for every one of the hot sauces that you guys sell. I'm like, but that's the beauty of it. So you can try to make it or you can just buy our stuff. You can see the quality that goes into it. And I think that the educational aspect of either hot sauce or the mortgage business, the real estate business, I think it helps everybody out there. And if they just decide that we're worthy, right, for them to be one of our clients, and all the better for all of us. They already get to know us a little bit more.
And by the way, kudos to you and your hot sauce company. You probably have a trophy room at this point to hold all the awards that you've won.
We've done pretty good. Hey, 25,000 followers on YouTube now.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. So let's get back to real estate.
Okay.
I just had to throw that in there.
Absolutely. little commercial.
We're laughing, but what wasn't very funny is 2023.
It was a challenging year for sure.
It was. I mean, challenging in the fact that interest rates went from 6% to 8% at one point.
Yeah.
They've come back down now into the higher sixes, maybe around 7%.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about why that happened. But it was a rough year across the board. I mean, we had sales were down nationwide when it comes to real estate.
Right.
The Austin area, obviously, we had such an amazing 2022, that anomalous year, where the median home price jumped to $550,000. But as we've talked about before, that was an anomalous reading, right? And we don't really like to talk about that too much.
Yeah, it's so helpful to look at. I've been sharing this chart that whatever neighborhood people are in, or if they want to see the overall Austin market, that does a 5-year look back or a 10-year look back. So for prices, so they can see this trend, and we can look at 2022 really as this anomalous bump that's out of scope. And
we actually have a graphic we could throw up. It's our number 6. It shows the last 5 years of median home price in the Austin area. And yes, there is that anomalous blip that we see in 2022. But if you look at it as a whole, especially compared to 2019, 2020, we're still doing way better than that. We haven't seen that giant crash that everybody was predicting last year. So there's some good news out there. In fact, I believe that the Austin area was only down a median home price 1% year over year.
That's right. This new data that's out is important because one of the things that we've been tracking is month-over-month gains, where we've had positive price gains for the last 6 months now. But those year-over-year numbers is what comes out on the evening news. It's what comes out in the newspaper. And the consumer that's not doing this deep dive is usually referring to that year-over-year number, where the trough, if you will, the ugliest was down something like 20%. But we've had this now minus 17%, minus 13%, minus 7, minus 5, and now down 1% this year. So it's really important to think about that not necessarily being only a representation of this month and what the real estate market is doing today, but also a representation of what it was doing 12 months ago, right? This is a comparison number, that year-over-year number. And back then, buyers were on tilt. Have you heard that term from gambling? So if you play poker with someone, and you get a pretty good hand and you think, hey, this is good, I'm going to gamble more, and then you lose and you get a little bit frustrated, and then hey, the next hand's pretty good, and you bet a little bit and you lose. It gets really frustrating.
Is that positive or negative progression or something?
Negative progression, I don't know. But what's said is that when that gambler, when that participant in that game, they get a good hand, they might act a little more aggressively than they need to. This is called going on tilt, meaning that their psychology gets messed up from losing, and then losing again, say, I'm going to be more aggressive, more aggressive, more aggressive. Right. We saw that last year. This is what has really caused some misinformation in the market. So as a third-party observer, you saw prices just shooting up like crazy. Even for many buyers that were thinking about getting in the market or not getting in the market, they watched prices just shoot up like crazy and thought, I missed out. I can't compete with this.
I missed my window, right?
Right. They might have even put an offer in and heard back, oh, sorry, there were 20 offers. You didn't win.
And you were $100,000 short on your
and you were $100,000
full price offer.
Right. And they think 20 other people are paying $100,000 more than this. But here's what we saw as listing agents. We would put a listing on, it might get 20 offers, and there could have been 10 of the offers might have been at list price. 7 of the offers might have been 5% over, 6% over the list price. And then one offer 10% over, and one offer 20% over, that $100,000. So from our viewpoint, we knew that stable, that 20 buyers, really represented a lot of willing to consume it around the list price.
Right.
And there was one buyer that was on tilt. They were being more aggressive than they needed to.
So it wasn't an indication of the whole market as a whole, but that one person coming in, he just said, I need a house and I'm going to pay whatever.
I'm going to win.
Because I'm bringing money from another state.
Bringing money from another state, my family, I need to enroll in school. I'm going to win at all costs. And they might have missed out on the previous two hands, the previous two multiple offer situations, and said, I'm going to win. No, I have the money in my pocket, like you said, coming from another state. I'm going to win. And they were having to do appraisal waivers and put extra cash commitment into getting those done. And it happened, fortunately or unfortunately, but the way that the story played out is it did happen for 2 or 3 months in a row, where the next listing came up, there were 20 more buyers, and there was another on tilt buyer that had to have it. And so there started to be enough closings at this crazy price that those became comparable sales, and appraisers were able to start using those as an indicator of where the market was. Right. And it seemed to be a new reality, although now in reflection, and with what I'm sharing about that pool of 20 buyers, that only one of them was the crazy on tilt buyer, that we can call it an anomaly now. It's a best way to wrap our heads around the overall market. How does it work? Is that was an anomaly. That wasn't real pricing. Really, the pricing was at that minus 17% or minus 20%.
So 22 was that anomalous year that we're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll call it the anomaly. 2023, I believe, was the year of the seller concession.
Yeah.
Right? And if you go back to 2021, 2022, I would say 95% of the contracts we came across, there would be no seller concessions.
Yeah.
Seller paid closing costs, not even a title policy, because they didn't have to pay any of the stuff.
Right.
Because the buyer was so engaged that they were not going to worry about it. Flip that around to a year later, 2023, it's the year of the seller concession. And the majority of seller concessions we've been seeing are between 3 and 4% for buy downs, for permanent buy downs, for 3-2-1 buy downs, paying title policy, doing whatever it takes to get that buyer off the fence. So it's going to be interesting what 2024 looks like. Maybe it will be a little bit of a hybrid of both of those.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting to realize that as there's that stabilization, we had those really high comparable sales. We didn't have a problem anymore getting appraisals. They were appraising at this high number. And so driven by the builders, which do represent a large number of transactions, sometimes approaching 50% of the transactions in the market. I think that's fallen off a little bit, but they represented it enough where they wanted to keep their prices high, right? So if you're a builder and you have 50 homes to sell, you would rather do the concession to give that 3, 4, 5, 6, in some cases 8, 9% concession in order to have the sale price still be represented at the high number, so that your next 49 houses that you're selling still have that high number as far as in people's heads what the sale price is.
Right. So do you think that maybe artificially inflated 2023?
I think it held it up as far as sort of values go, even though like what you're sharing is true, that those concessions really came across not only in new construction, but that permeated into the resale markets first, where they were competing with new construction, and then into the rest of the market where you, myself, all of us in marketing were able to say, hey, these buy downs can be a way that we can overcome some of that philosophical frustration with
like,
an 8% interest rate.
8%
Exactly.
Rate. And with a lot of these buy downs that we were seeing, these permanent buy downs even, we were able to get, if the seller paid 3 or 4 points, you could get down to low 6s or high 5s.
That's right. That's right.
To get into that affordability and get that transaction on the books.
Yeah. So that was the year of the concession. You're right to say that. And now our perception is changing significantly. We think that this month is going to be important because that year over year number, we're getting past the anomaly, skewing that, and we're moving back into neutral territory today. And then we know that next month will represent positive, 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 and that we're back on that long-term trend, that 5 to 10 year trend, where we have positive appreciation taking place. This changes investors' attitude. I was explaining this to someone who was new to Austin just this past week and told them about the tech boom and what it was like in Austin when
99,
everyone had Dell stock. Literally.
Dellionaires everywhere.
My grandma had Dell stock, and we would go over for a meal at grandma's house, and the conversation would include, oh, the Dell stock split again.
Yeah.
And I thought, in retrospect this past week, how interesting it was that Dell stock price was part of a conversation with your grandmother. It was part of a conversation with everyone that
everybody
in
became
Austin.
a day trader because it was easy to access online. That's when the internet was really ramping up.
But it taught me a lesson then, back in that 2000 period, about what do investors, sort of, let's maybe say real consumers that want to be investment minded, what do they do when prices are going up, and what do they do when prices are going down, or the perception of prices are going down? What we're talking about in real estate. There's a term, don't catch a falling knife, in that investing, where everyone gets scared that you can hurt yourself if the price is falling and you grab it. If the knife's falling and you grab it, you can cut yourself and hurt. So everyone with that day trader mentality that's considering real estate as well is looking for that bottom, is looking for that idea that prices are going to be higher next month or next year than they are today.
And if it is truly a falling knife, they're going to back away.
That's right. And I guess our biggest point is that for the last 5, 6, 8 months, that year over year number has been broadcasting, it's a falling knife, it's a falling knife.
I mean, we talk about if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't read, right?
Yeah.
And, you got to have that clickbait out there. And if you go into YouTube now or at any websites, you can type in Austin real estate into YouTube, and it comes up with all these Austin real estate is about to, explode, or Austin real estate is about to take a 20% hit. And then you start looking at the video or looking at the news article, and it's like, that's really not what they're saying in the news article. They're just getting it as a click. But a lot of people just see the headlines. Yeah.
So one of the things that you and I do, we love to check in with each other because we have a couple of canaries in the coal mine at our disposal that's different than what the internet provides. It's really the benefit of us being feet on the street or really down in the trenches, if you will, which is my company, a real estate brokerage. We have around 130 listings active right now. And I have the data that shows how much lockbox activity there is. So
and just for our consumers out there, our watchers out there that aren't in the real estate business, the lockbox is what you put on a house that has a listing, right? And it's
there's an electronic lockbox. Yep, it's Bluetooth. It connects with our phones, and so when we access it, when a showing realtor accesses it to open it up to get that key to unlock the door and show it to a buyer, that data
So that's a real-time data.
It's a real-time data point, right? There could be one in my pocket right now that we don't know about. Probably is today.
Is that called a pocket listing?
A pocket listing. But those hits are interesting because we get to know what buyer activity is doing. This is before they put a contract down. And then the contracts are good canaries in the coal mine too.
Yeah.
Those close 30 to 40 days later.
The first wave there is going to be those people looking at houses, right?
That's right.
So if you're showing, data set shows that you're at an X point right now, and all of a sudden it increases 30% over a month-long period.
Try 400%.
400%. Is that what you're seeing?
Let's
really?
look back over
is that
about the last
month or year
I'd say in the last 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, somewhere 3 to 4 weeks is where something seems to change. And you have a canary too, which is applications.
Right.
And application
ours are up 85% month over month right now.
Yeah, so something has changed, and this is what we're reporting internal to my sales meetings, is to say activity is significantly up. You're seeing that as well, and the people in the industry that we talk to are also seeing that. And so what we know is that the next step to that is contracts explode, the number of contracts explode, and we are seeing there are reports of multiple offers again that are coming in anecdotally from different listings. And then 30 to 45 days after that, those transactions close. 30 to 45 days after that, the Austin Board of Realtors reports it to the newspaper.
So that's about a 3 month behind the wheel.
Yeah, that's why the show is so important, right? So this YouTube video, this YouTube channel, today's, what's today? 26th, 5th?
Yeah,
27th?
27th.
So it's the end of January. What we're telling you now is that we're going to start to be able to report data to our viewers that, yeah, it's 3 months ahead of what the general public is going to be consuming. So that's a long time. In the world of real estate, that gives you plenty of time to be ahead of the lemmings, if you will.
Right.
Forget falling knife. It's time to catch a rocket. It's time to catch a moonshot right now.
For all those people who missed that opportunity a couple of years ago, maybe that opportunity is back, right?
Correct.
And I think a lot of it has to do with consumer confidence.
I think so too.
When the media starts reporting that interest rates were at 8%, now they've dropped down into the 6s. That's a huge mental thing for a consumer out there. And what I think a lot of consumers don't understand either is that even though the prevailing rate may be 6.875 or 7% or whatever it may be, we were talking about seller concessions already, right? And the further the lower we go, the lower we can take that final rate for that consumer if the seller is willing to pay some buy down, which they are right now, right? What is the sentiment that you hear from your sellers on y'all's listings right now when it comes to how good do they feel about the market? And the second question here is, why are they selling right now?
Yeah, there is some moving out of state. So yes, Austin's still growing at a pace that keeps it in the top
15. I think we're top 15 in job growth.
Yeah, so jobs is that seed, and our net gain is huge. But keep in mind, so this will be plus minus off a little bit, but let's say that 180 people move into Austin every single day. About 140 move outside of Austin every day.
Still a net gain, but
still a huge net gain. It's a massive number of people that are coming in, and we're growing. Our population is on pace to double. They say every 20 years, this is what it's always done.
The predictions I see for 2023 were 2.5 million.
Yeah, but there's 140 people that are exiting the city on a daily basis. So these are sellers that are, some of them are hanging on for rental properties, but some are selling.
Right.
And it's mostly that relocation out that represents sellers. Our prediction, though, so when we look back over last year, that year of the buy down, you called it.
So the year of the seller concession.
Yeah, that was quiet. You brought some staggering numbers about how few transactions there were last year.
I think nationwide, new existing home closings were down 20% almost.
Yeah, so the transactions that were happening at 8% interest rates with these buy downs and whatnot, they represented a lot of in-migration. It was these people that were moving to town. They needed a house. Rents are pretty high. It still made sense for them to buy. It was the move-up buyer that turned off. It was the buyer that had the house in Steiner Ranch and they wanted to live in River Place, maybe with more square footage or maybe to get the swimming pool, and they just said, nope, I'm good. My interest rate's 3%. I'm just going to wait and watch.
Right.
So it was that in-town moves that spigot turned off.
And move up buyers. I think those are the ones. Because I will tell you that last year was also the year of the first time home buyer.
Yeah.
We saw, I think we probably saw a 100% increase in our the mix between first-time home buyer and existing homeowner, right? And the existing homeowner are almost, if they lived in Austin, they weren't doing the move up anymore, and they definitely weren't doing the smaller house, right? What do you call that? Buying down. Downsizing. Thank you very much. They weren't downsizing because what they would find is that, I'll get a much smaller house, but my payment's actually more because interest rates are higher right now. So here's what my biggest fear is for 2024. What is keeping us from falling into the same trap of no inventory and high demand that we did in 2022?
Nothing. That's what we expect to happen.
Right.
And that's where I'm going with this, is that spigot that's been turned off of the move-up buyer, I think that's the one that can be turned on and probably not trickled on. It probably comes on like a fire hose because of the perception of where prices are. Here's what I mean. So move-up buyer, pick your numbers. If they're moving up from 500,000 to 750 or $1 million to $1.5 million, whatever the number is, moving up generally represents an increase in the price point. And so when they run numbers, when they look at that, if there's a perception that prices are going to start increasing again, it makes sense to do something sooner than later, right? Because you would rather, let's say, okay, we think there's going to be, it can be a small number, 3% appreciation over the next 6 months. If you say, okay, we're back to 6% appreciation. Yeah. So if I buy something now versus 6 months, you'd rather have the $1.5 million house now that's appreciating 3% versus the $1 million house. So when there's a delta, if you're buying same price range, then it doesn't hurt as much because you have the same value asset that's appreciating that you haven't sold yet,
right?
And you haven't replaced. They're going up at the same pace. But if you're increasing in price range, then that puts a big time motivator to go sooner than later. And we think that is going to be enough that when people really start running numbers, that more than soaks up difference of if they are sitting on a 3% interest rate and they're moving to 6%, that delta, even in a matter of 6 months, can soak up a difference in payment, or even if it's $1,000 difference in payments because of interest rate, that gets
and
soaked
sellers
up.
are still willing to give those seller concessions right now too on the house that they're buying, right?
Correct.
So even if let's say rates in the next 2 months fall down to 6.5, 6.25, that's easily down into the 5s if the seller's willing to contribute towards a permanent buy down of that rate, which makes it even more it makes it even more a better option for these people.
That's right.
And gets them off of
That's
their
right.
Instead of being locked into their house and they're like, okay, I want to move. Now I can justify moving because that interest rate is now, maybe I can buy it down into the mid 5s. So I'm okay with that.
That's right. So this is a weather forecast, and this, my weather for temperatures in Austin, I think my app goes out 7 days, or maybe it goes out 10 days. But if you have an app that can go out 14 days and you say, oh, we're going to be at 15 degrees and there's precipitation expected at the same time, you're thinking, ice apocalypse number 2. If you can see further out than me and then everybody else, and you can just mosey into your HEB. You can buy all the toilet paper you want to for regular prices.
Right.
You can shop, grab some soup, whatever you need, John. You're able to have your pick of the litter. You can use the coupons. You get it on sale.
Because I have information that other people don't have.
And exactly. In 7 days, the shelves are bare because everybody else is getting the information.
So your analogy here is that you want to be that person that moseys on into the store because they have the information going out 15 days, or let's say 15 weeks when it comes to real estate.
Yeah.
Right? And then the other people, as soon as they do find out about what's going on, if bad weather in your analogy, or home prices are starting to accelerate, they're all going to jump in at the same time.
Correct.
Right? And now you've beat that. Beat all those people by getting in, by grabbing a rocket, you said, not the falling knife.
Exactly. And so I'm listening to myself, and it sounds like this guy's making a pretty bold prediction. But let me temper that by saying 25 years in the business, and I've seen 4 of these big recession cycles. And I'm willing to kind of put my reputation on a line.
Well, I've been talking about rates, and I've got some bold predictions I'm going to make here in just a little while. We talk about these things that we've been through, all these downturns before, and it's always when it's the worst news out there. This is the worst market. It's going down. Just don't buy houses. Don't buy houses. That, if in retrospect, is always when you should.
Right.
And then on the flip side of that, when people are saying, hey, this market's so great, it's never going to go down, that's when you sell.
Yeah.
That's when you sell.
Yeah, that's that anomaly. Those sellers are sitting pretty that sold back in first quarter 2022 for sure.
So 2023, obviously the year of the concession, right? For a lot of people did take advantage of it. Also the year of the builder, a lot of new construction happening out there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about new construction.
Let's do. And I think it also probably represents really, if you're a sniper, if you really want to get a crazy good deal and you say, I want the best investment possible, that there's a little narrow sub-market, there's probably some opportunity. If you are a little bit of a gambler, want me to share it now or you want to save it for a minute?
Yeah, let's save that.
Okay, so new construction, but it is in this realm of new construction. So set us up. What do you say? You again, like your mortgage company's been around for a long time. You're one of the majors. You're still local guy.
Yeah.
It's nice that you can walk right in this office and knock on your door and say, hey, John, but you're big, and so you get a big sampling. It also means you do a lot of work for these builders. These builders come to you and they say, hey, we want a local guy that's not working out of his garage. Like we want a big shop with processors
right.
and the whole thing. So what do they say? It means you get to be in some interesting rooms. I won't name names, but there's some big developers that it's kind of nice that you get to sit at the table with them and hear
Or
what
I could just pick up the phone and call them.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So what are they saying?
They're saying that the problem they're running into right now is a little bit on the demand side, right? You know, their confidence down, especially when rates hit 8%.
Yeah.
It was a little rough out there. But their biggest problem is land acquisition right now. And the price for land in Central Texas has not gone down.
Okay.
So that's one of the problems that they're having. I mean, if you look out towards, Taylor, I mean, obviously what Samsung's doing out there, there's lots of land being gobbled up, but you're 2 years out before any of that can be delivered. And there's also just a lot of places around, if you look up in the northern part of the MSA in Williamson County, in Round Rock, Cedar Park, these types of places, the regulations out there are actually making it more expensive for the builders to build too.
Yeah.
Out of one side, the city council is talking about affordability, and the other side are talking about green energy. Well, it's a balancing act when it becomes that, because green means more expensive, right?
Yeah.
And affordability, it's hard to do that when the land cost is X, right? And then you've got some new regulations on the green side, and you're trying to deliver a product that's affordable. So the builders, what we're seeing out there, I know you're seeing it, is smaller square footage.
Right.
I mean, we talked about this before the show. 10 years ago, some big builders around town, they would build these boxes that were 4,000, 5,000 square feet.
Absolutely.
And they were just a box, right?
Exactly.
It was just a lot of square footage. Now, that same house they're building, it's 2,000 square feet, right? As opposed to that 4,000 square feet, but it's about the same price when it costs per square footage. So if they were building a 5,000 square foot house now, nobody could afford it.
That's right.
Right? But now they can afford the 2,000 square foot house.
Yeah, and that's that shrinkflation effect, right? So this is the Doritos chips that used to have 1.5 ounces in the bag, and now the bag's the same size, but it has 1 ounce of chips inside of it.
Right.
It's because the consumer is trained that, okay, I'm okay to spend $1.50 at the snack machine for the bag of chips, that producer's creating and putting less product into it so they can still maintain that same price point. They don't have to charge $2 now at the vending machine, but you're getting less product. And that's exactly what's happening in that new construction, where home sizes are going down and the consumer's saying, hey, I can only afford 400,000. Like, that's my number, so help me get there. And so the builders, rather than delivering those big monster houses at a higher price point, are finding ways to shrink and just use fewer materials and be able to build it faster.
And they've been very aggressive on their seller concessions too. I've seen them pay up to $30,000, $40,000 in seller concessions to permanently buy down the rate. And then they permanently buy it down, then they do a 3-2-1 buy down, which is a temporary buy down, and they stack them together.
Yes.
So if they permanently buy it down to 5.875, do a 3-2-1 buy down, they can have a start rate for the first year at 2.875.
Yeah.
And that's very attractive to a lot of people out there, right? So, by the way, you can do that on resale or new construction. It's going to be interesting to see how the inventory for the builders as we move forward for the next 12 to 18 months when it comes to new home construction. Now, we are seeing a lot of being delivered, though, is multifamily.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. I read a story recently that rents in Austin are down 12% year over year. How is that affecting the resale or new construction market?
So it's interesting because we do have these echo effects from the rental market, the leasing market, into the purchase market. And there are, we talked at the top of this show about how the relocations that are coming in, new jobs are being created, people are moving here. They will often decide, do I rent a house or do I buy a house? They compare those numbers, looking at absolute cost on the monthly rental versus absolute cost of the mortgages. There has been, that's put more rental demand as those interest rates floated up over the past year. We've seen increased demand in the rentals, but When interest rates were 2.75%, 3%, then multifamily developers could really make a lot of projects make sense. Their borrowing costs were so low that they could build big apartment complexes on land that they either already owned or they were able to acquire land.
Close to zero financing.
Their numbers made sense. Yeah, it was almost free financing for them. And their numbers made sense in a way that they hadn't at years before, and they don't today. But those take a while. They can take 2.5 to 3 years to deliver that product. Right. Hammers are down, the stucco's up, carpet's in, and it's ready to put the flowers out and give you free chocolates to come look and lease the property. We're dealing with that now, that surge of new stuff 3 years ago, 2 years ago. It's coming to market now. It's still delivering, even though for a year we said, whoa, it's scary, the market's slow.
Right.
They can't stop. That cruise ship is coming into dock.
Right.
And
no momentum, you're not stopping.
It's not stopping. It's 2 years into a 3-year project, and it's going to complete. And so those completions are still coming, and we have an outsized number of units that are being delivered right now, more than we need. It is driving rent rates down. I say echo because
now that's for multifamily. Is it driving rental rates down?
It does.
Single family.
It does slowly. Single family is starting to go down now. So we've seen apartment rents down probably for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. That does percolate in. It takes a little bit of time. So these mostly 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, they do compete with duplexes. So the duplex units that are out there that single owners have that are 2 bedrooms usually, sometimes 3 bedrooms, they're a little bit more fluid of, hey, these apartments are running a special. I can just go, yeah, I have one neighbor and I have a little yard, but I can go without it to save $400 a month.
Right.
So the apartments, they will fill up, right? These are big institutions generally that own those apartments. They don't say, well, we'll just let them sit empty for a year. They say, no, drop the price, incentives, and they will pull tenants from somewhere else.
Right.
And so that duplex may have some vacancy and that owner may have to lower their rent a little bit.
Or that older apartment complex down the street.
Yeah. The duplexes end up cannibalizing from the single family homes where people say, hey, I'll deal with one neighbor, one attached neighbor. I'll still have my yard and I'll leave the rental house to move into the rental duplex. And so you have some filtering down where the apartments, they don't directly cannibalize from the 4,000 square foot house in Westlake. But eventually, that echo effect will reach that market where that 4,000 square foot Westlake tenant might move to a 3,000 square foot Terrytown house, and that tenant may be moving to a 2,000 square foot Northwest Hills house. And so that filtering does take place, and it's slow. Most of our residential leases are 12-month leases. And so even if you knew you were going to do that, if you had 6 months left in your lease, you're not going to actually make that change until the end of your lease term.
Right.
So it's a little bit slow and sticky.
So there's almost like a valve on that then.
There's a valve on that. It means that we can also predict that this effect that hangover will extend beyond this sort of boom or this rush that we are expecting this spring and summer,
right?
Where we're seeing multiple offers now, we're seeing understanding that prices are going up. That effect's probably going to lift off for a while we still have rental rates decreasing.
Right.
So it'll be an interesting time for sure in this market. Last year, nobody started in multifamily, right? So 6%, 7%, 8% interest rates. That multifamily now, the starts are way, way below average. So we'll have the same thing happen 3 years from last year. So in 2 years,
like a roller coaster, right?
It's like a roller coaster, and it's like motorcyclists call it a death wobble because if they get a little wobble in their steering, in their handlebars, and they try to correct, and then they overcorrect, and it gets more
going too fast.
Yeah, and so that magnifying effect is probably going to get worse. Where the roller coaster peaks and valleys on the rental market, residential rental market, we expect is going to be very dramatic.
All right, so let's talk about interest rates.
Okay.
Obviously, interest rates have a huge impact on affordability.
Right.
And we've seen this, right? When rates went from 3% to 8%, one of the biggest factors of that was because interest rates was the reason house prices either stopped really selling, normalized, or they went down was because of this higher cost, right? And not only did it cost more to buy a house, right? It costs more for your insurance costs because of all the weather we've been having in Texas. Insurance has almost tripled over the last couple of years.
Way up.
In fact, a lot of carriers have left. We need to do a show about this.
Yeah.
A lot of people, insurance companies have got out of it. Your credit card interest rate is tied to the Fed funds rate, right?
Yeah.
So those costs have gone up. If you have a home equity line of credit, that cost has gone up. Most people with a home equity line of credit, they're probably around 9 to 10% on that home equity line of credit because it is tied to the Fed funds rate. So that really did bring consumer confidence down in 2023. What we saw towards the last month of 2023, when rates went from 8% down to about 6.75, is the media started picking up on it. Consumer confidence started to grow. We see application pace, we see closings, we see people with a little bit more fresh attitude about what the market is, and that's kind of what our attitude is over the next 12 months. Is I believe we're going to see some dramatic changes in interest rates from the Fed. The next meeting is January 31st.
Yeah.
They're predicted not to show any kind of cut in the interest rate. In fact, all the jobs news and everything else coming out just says they're going to keep it where it is, January 31st. The next meeting is not until March 20th, and there's going to be a lot of data that comes out between then and then. You're going to have the jobs report that's coming out the 2nd of February. You're also going to have another jobs report at the beginning of March. You're going to have the CPI, which is February 14th, coming out. There'll be another CPI report at the beginning of March coming out. There'll be another PCE this month and next month before that next Fed cut. So what we're seeing trending, though, with those economic forecasters is that on the downside, we're watching the PCE drop, we're watching CPI drop. The only thing that's really been holding strong is jobs reports, right? They keep coming in a little bit stronger than the Fed really wants to see. However, I do believe that there's about a 50-50 chance on the March 20th meeting that they will lower rates by a quarter. It's 50-50 right now. That's data dependent over the next couple of months. We see what happens. But I think by mid-year, like the end of Q1, end of Q2, I think that we may have seen at least a 75 to 100 basis points drop by the Fed. This is very aggressive, I know.
Wow.
But listen, they put them on fast. I think they're going to take it off fast because whatever did, it worked. Our GDP is still doing very, very super strong, right? It's jobs, it's what's holding it up. That's the only thing that's worrying the Fed right now when it comes to it. But inflation numbers have definitely come down. The latest PCE reading that we saw year over year was 2.9, and their target is 2%. So remember, it was almost at 9% inflation. It's gone down to 2.9% in a very short period of time. So that's got to be, that's the Fed. They were aggressive, but guess what? Those numbers are actually working. And now remember that PCE and the CPI, those are core numbers. They exclude food and energy.
So the things we care about.
The things that we care about, absolutely. But this is the government, so they like to manipulate the data, I'm sure, just a little bit. As we know, prices for energy have gone up, and obviously food has gone up through the roof. There was somebody sent me a article the other day. It was a snapshot of some grocery store about like 35 years ago, and it had all the different products with the prices on it. And it was like eggs, 75 cents. Yeah. I mean, it was just crazy what was on there.
You have to jab the egg knife in my side one more time before we started recording. About how we
have chickens. I have chickens in my house.
He's like, I have too many eggs. They're all perfect, the free range perfect eggs, and then I'm buying $4 for 6 eggs.
I ran some numbers on it. We're paying with the food costs for the chickens. We're paying probably 5 cents per egg.
Ouch!
5 cents, not $1 for an egg.
Yeah.
Or what is it, 75 cents per egg?
It is, yeah.
So it's costing us about 5 cents per egg. And anyway, we digress.
Okay.
We digress. So anyway, here's my bold prediction for 2024.
Yes.
By the end of Q2, I think 75 basis points cut by the Fed. I think that the spread between the 10-year and mortgage-backed securities will compact, which will actually drop rates down too. I'm expecting rates to be in the low 6s by the end of Q2.
Okay.
By the end of Q3, and I think all the Fed meetings towards the end of the year, I think you're going to see some aggressive rate cuts to the Fed funds rate, which will pull the 10-year Treasury down, which will also pull mortgage-backed securities down too, which will lower rates. So I think by the end of Q2, 6.25 maybe.
Okay.
I think by the end of the year, we could see mid to high 5s.
Wow.
Data driven though. Now, if any of this data that we've been talking about today, the CPI, the PCE, or the jobs report come in too strong, or inflation starts going, instead of going down, starts going up, that could change. So watch the data. But if it keeps along the same path that we've been on for the last 12 months, I think you're going to see low inflation, excluding fuel and energy and food, and we're going to see lowering mortgage rates, which is going to get that locked-in buyer off the table. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, pendings we'll be able to see going into February. I think you'll see pendings up dramatically, and there will be starting to be sharing of the news in the industry that something's crazy happening. I think that shows up as closings. That in March we'll have closings way up, and the early reports to the general public will be starting to get disseminated.
And around April is when the general public will, because
April you'll have mass media by around the 15th to the 18th of April. We'll have mass media reporting
about what happened.
Closings are way up, and I think you'll also have reporting of prices that are going to be up.
But this is what you're talking about before, that if you're behind that curve, then you've already missed part of that increase. And usually the first part of that increase is the big increase.
Well, right? This is going to be fun. But that's when the real gasoline, and it's where your rate gasoline comes in just slightly after that. But I think by April you have general consensus that prices are moving up, and we'll have a re-entry into the market. And I think that this summer, experiencing multiple offers again and competing with other buyers against limited inventory is going to be a reality.
Yeah. Well, let's hope though that some of the people that are sitting on houses right now at those low interest rates will decide that the rates have come down enough that they can do their move up, or move down, or whatever it is that you get out of that house. Maybe they've kept it as an investment property, so maybe it's time to sell it right now, right, and add to some more inventory. Because I truly believe that the worst thing that could happen would be that it's too good. Like it was in 22, and all of a sudden we start seeing these anomalous numbers again.
That's right.
Right. And so I'm hoping that it is a soft landing. I'll steal something from the Fed. Hope it's a soft landing for real estate here, because if it's too perfect of a landing, we could get into that problem where there's just not enough inventory again. And it happened so fast back in 22. Just as fast as it went away, that's as fast as it comes too. So let's hope for more listings out there and more activity.
Yeah.
What is your synopsis for 2024? Just close
2024, I think, it'll be again one of these tales of 2 years where many people will still portray the first part of the year as slow, and then I think we'll be portraying the second part of the year as fast or super busy again.
Like if we were to fast forward a year from now, in retrospect, what would you say 2024, what happened?
We'll see a lot of hindsight armchair quarterbacks that say, oh, we should have bought first quarter of 2024. So this will be seen as a really good entry point into real estate purchases. And how you play that out, it's going to depend if you are moving up in price range. As I was saying before, going earlier than later will make sense. If it's lateral, then, if you already have a house, so then those people can be a little bit more paced about watching what's happening. But I think that will get influenced by if we do have dwindling inventory. So inventory is already low now. If that inventory continues to get crunched, we could see that accelerating fact of I should do things earlier. But you're right, we do have to watch that rental market. So that residential rental market, if you're 1,500 square foot house in Pflugerville, you're going to be competing more directly with that rental market that's being delivered into the market than you are if you're in Clarksville. In a house there.
Right.
So remember that all of that multifamily that's delivering is not evenly spread amongst the whole part of the city. There are hot spots, and it is sort of in that rim of expansion, we would call it, where most of that multifamily is coming.
All right. Well, interesting. Well, Kevin, thanks. Hey, guys, thanks for watching us today. Subscribe below for new episodes. We're going to have them coming out every couple of weeks. You can check out how our predictions go, and we'll talk about any updates in the market, what's happening with the data, and we'll get the information before you actually read about it online. Hey, for John, Kevin, and the Real Estate Zone, we'll see you next time. Subscribe below.